We're here today to celebrate Rainforest Action Network. I'm the program director at Rainforest Action Network, and we work on hard-hitting corporate campaigns, following the money to figure out which corporations are wreaking the most destruction around the world and then holding them accountable. We're at a beautiful house in Santa Monica with, I would say, about 60 or 70 people who've all gathered here today because they're interested in the work of Rainforest Action Network, and I think most of the people here are new to our work and so are just here to meet us for the first time and hear about the campaigns we're working on and how they can contribute to making good change in the world. The three most important things that we're working on right now are, first of all, getting America off coal, and particularly in stopping the practice of mountaintop removal. The second most important thing we're working on is holding the big agribusiness companies such as Cargill accountable for the rainforest destruction they're wreaking in the name of both biofuels and palm oil, which goes into cosmetics and into our food. And the third most important thing that we're working on is stopping the tar sands, which is certainly a very destructive form of oil extraction in Canada and Alberta that's wreaking huge havoc on human health and also the environment up there. Mountaintop removal is a practice of coal mining in Appalachia specifically, where they take the top off the mountain, dump what they call overburden into the valley below, and then take out usually about 6 inches of coal, a coal seam that's very, very small. And the reason that they're going to this form of coal mining now is because underground mining has gotten all it can get in Appalachia. And it's cheaper for them to simply blow the tops off mountains to get to coal seams than it is to keep going deeper and deeper to get what's still there. Now in Appalachia we have America's probably the world actually, most biodiverse hardwood forests. And first thing they do is they take all the trees off and they actually burn them. They don't even use the wood because it's not economical for them to do so. The second thing they do, as I said, is use enormous amount of explosives to blow the tops off these mountains. In fact, in 1 week in Appalachia, they use about the same level of explosives as was used in Hiroshima during World War II. So it's a huge amount. It's really a war on that landscape and a war on the communities that are there. Because as you can imagine, when you're laying waste to that many mountains in an area like that, the communities that live in those valleys, whose water is affected profoundly by the streams getting clogged up, are suffering from cancer, they're suffering from respiratory illness, and in general that incredibly endemic culture in Appalachia that everybody loves so much for their music and they've been there so long is under attack. First of all, coal is the single largest cause of climate change in America. You know that about 50% of America's electricity comes from coal right now, but the vast majority of our carbon emissions, which is the emissions that are the greenhouse gases that primarily cause climate change, are coming from the burning of coal. There's no such thing as clean coal. It's this mythological technology that so far doesn't actually exist, whereby the idea is that we'll burn the coal, it'll emit the carbon, we're going to capture it, liquefy it, and then stick it underground forever. Now, they're trying to make it happen. They have been trying to make it happen for well over 10 years, and so far there's been no successful, economically viable technology that's emerged. And yet, there is still a lot of hope. Why is there a lot of hope? Because the coal industry realizes that it's really in a fight for its life. I mean, you're looking at an industry that is built on burning fossil fuels, which is exactly what we can't do any longer if we're going to stop catastrophic climate change and reach the kind of deep reductions in our greenhouse gas emissions that scientists tell us we have to reach. So coal needs to be drastically reduced, if not stopped, in terms of burning in America. The connection between burning coal and mountaintop removal is a very interesting one, and I often say that mountaintop removal and Appalachia is really the front lines of the climate battle. It's really where we see how our addiction to fossil fuels affects communities and real people on the ground. It's really ground zero for the climate fight, because this is where the coal that we're burning is coming out of the ground. And when you hear people like even President Obama talking about clean coal, he's really not paying attention to the fact that that coal has to come from somewhere. And you go into Appalachia and go to any of those communities and ask them whether coal is clean, and they'll laugh in your faces. Because there's no way to clean up the process of digging something out from underground, particularly not when we're getting less and less of it and we have to go to such incredibly drastic measures in order to get it out. This year is a particularly important year for mountaintop removal, partly because there's an unprecedented amount of awareness about coal and its impacts on the climate, and also because people are really starting to realize what's happening in Appalachia and how much we're losing in terms of our ecological heritage and our cultural heritage by laying waste to that landscape. There's really easy ways for us to stop mountaintop removal. Very simply, Congress could enact legislation, there's some in the House and the Senate right now, called the Clean Water Protection Act, that would stop the process of being able to dump the tops of mountains into streams. If the coal companies can't do that, then they can't do mountaintop removal, and in fact, they used to not be able to do that because there was such a thing called the Clean Water Protection Act that was empowered them to not, well, it actually prevented them from doing so. The second thing is Obama, with the stroke of a pen, President Obama could actually stop the practice if he chose to. And when he was on the campaign trail, he really did say that he was concerned about mountaintop removal specifically. And the third thing is we need to cut off money that's flowing to companies that are practicing mountaintop removal. And the top financier of mountaintop removal is JP Chase, which as we speak is vastly expanding its retail banking presence all across the country, using new customers' money to finance the most destructive form of mining. And so one of the things that Rainforest Action Network is doing is both sending a strong message to President Obama that this practice needs to be stopped, mountaintop removal needs to be stopped, and sending a strong message to JP Chase that they should be pulling their money out of this practice unless they really want to suffer significant reputational risk. I think we have better choices than fossil fuels in terms of meeting our energy needs. Certainly, energy efficiency is the first one. I mean, we could meet, according to a McKinsey study, we could meet about 50% of our energy needs, including projected growth in energy needs, by energy efficiency alone. So that's a huge cut right there. And then we now have massive growth in solar, photovoltaic, and also wind, and tidal, and geothermal. There's lots of studies out there that show how by ramping up our use of renewables, massively implementing energy efficiency, we can meet and exceed our energy uses over the next 20, 30 years. What this will require is a huge shift of subsidies and financing away from fossil fuels and into the renewable sector. And that's where the rubber hits the road. So at the moment, our coal industry is heavily subsidized. And what we need to do is see that money switched around and moved right into the renewables and energy efficiency sectors. The thing that makes RAND really unique is that we approach corporations with compassion. So we look at corporations as people in some ways, and we don't immediately go to them and start banging them over the head for what they're doing. We write them a letter and we say, look, we're concerned about this practice and here's why, and here's what you can do about it. Now, if they don't take action to take a look at these issues and their practices, then we'll encourage them a little more forcefully. We do protests, we do email actions, we do all kinds of activism out in the world to really make it really worth their while to listen. We bring together the network and Rainforest Action Network to really pressure these corporations to do the right thing, all the way up to civil disobedience, which we're willing to do if it's called for, to really hit them where it hurts, hit them in the pocketbook. So a good example is sometimes corporations capitulate immediately with just one letter, and sometimes it takes them years of campaigning. But we don't give up, and we've never lost a campaign.